It depends on your point of view. Who has benefited from NAFTA?
Well, it's not too difficult to figure that out, Dick. It's the big corporations who have moved their operations to Mexico, where they can make their products for less but get the same price as before. And of course, the globalists benefit.
And who has been hurt by NAFTA?
Just about everybody else who isn't rich or a member of the elite.
So, if what's happening in North America is based on the European Union prototype, then NAFTA was intentionally designed to lead to the political and economic integration of the NAFTA partners.
And this is what the globalists are planning for us in the Americas. There's one main difference, however. It took them about 50 years to create the European Union. The North American Union is a highly accelerated version of the EU. The globalists want it up and running by 2010.
The plan is described in Building a North American Community, a task force report put out by the CFR. The word community is used to imply that this is a cooperative group with everybody working together, but it is a euphemism for union. This CFR report, in fact, is full of euphemisms. For example, it says that Canada and the United States should consider eliminating restrictions on labor mobility altogether and work towards solutions that, in the long run, could enable the extension of full labor mobility to Mexico as well.
Full labor mobility throughout North America may sound nice, Dick, but what it really means is no borders between the United States, Mexico, and Canada.
And that is why the federal government has stopped enforcing our immigration laws.
That's right, Dick. U.S. immigration laws have not been repealed legislatively by Congress. Instead, these laws are being deliberately ignored by a government that is mandated by the Constitution to serve and protect the American people. Americans need to ask themselves why immigration laws that have been on the books for years, many of them since the 1920s, are being treated as if they never existed, and then think about why our Congress keeps trying to pass comprehensive immigration reform as the solution to our failed border security. If the government ignores existing laws, why is it pushing for more laws?
A closer look at that comprehensive immigration reform legislation turns up provisions designed to legalize the 12 to 20 million illegals who are already in this country by granting them amnesty. But these provisions are buried deep within these reform bills, sometimes disguised as benefits. Sometimes they are riders attached to other bills that already have wide support of the Congress to increase their chances of passage into law.
Congress has been promoting amnesty since 1965, when Senator Ted Kennedy, as the Senate Immigration Subcommittee chairman, was instrumental in driving the legislation that removed the quotas based on natural origin and introduced chain migration, the policy that allows citizens and lawful permanent residents to bring in their extended non-nuclear family members. This legislation kicked off the massive immigration we see today. To sell the American people on it, Kennedy reassured us,
"The bill will not flood our cities with immigrants. It will not upset the ethnic mix of our society. It will not relax the standards of admission. It will not cause American workers to lose their jobs."
But contrary to what Senator Kennedy said, that legislation did all of those things.
Rick, that's because the globalists behind the government are pushing amnesty for subversive, not humanitarian purposes. Without amnesty, the government would have to account for the millions of illegal aliens scattered about our country. But with amnesty, those aliens would become legal residents, regardless of whether they assimilate or not, and the government would be off the hook. So it creates incentives for illegals to come here.
Of course, the globalists can't reveal their true intentions, or the American people would stop them. So they pretend the government is too incompetent or lacks the resources to implement immigration laws and secure the borders. Then they try to pass some kind of reform as though there's something wrong with the law. But there's nothing wrong with the law, Dick, just the people responsible for enforcing it. The government could close our border within 24 hours, but it will not do that. Instead, it arrests and imprisons Border Patrol agents for doing their job and tells the Mexican government where the Minutemen are located so the illegals can avoid them. It passes legislation to construct a border fence, but doesn't appropriate any money for it, and never will. It lobbies Congress for laws that are amnesties in disguise. It pushes H-1B visas to favor hiring foreign workers over American workers. It promotes sanctuary cities, IDs, and driver's licenses for illegal aliens. It passes the Real ID Act on the pretense that it would solve the illegal alien issue by forcing states to implement national standards for driver's licenses. But it really creates a de facto national ID system, with the very real possibility of capturing and storing biometric information in a national database. The government does everything it can to keep the borders open and to encourage people to come here illegally.
Clearly, these are deliberate actions. The obvious reason is that the government is using illegal immigration to create a de facto NAU. By not maintaining border integrity, the globalists are effectively erasing the borders. The less obvious reason is that no borders means the end of our country's independence and the end of the Constitution, as we are absorbed into the regional government of the North American Union. So open borders and illegal immigration are tied together to achieve the same objective.
The government purposely created this problem in the first place by refusing to enforce existing immigration laws so it could offer the solution of the NAU.
That is why the American government is using the American military to protect borders in other countries, but not around our own country.
And that is why our country is being overwhelmed with the expenses, crime, and job losses caused by massive illegal immigration.
Every American should be asking at least one question. Why do we have the USA Patriot Act and Homeland Security, supposedly to protect us from terrorism? And why are we engaged in a war against terror, at home and abroad, when our national borders are wide open?
Now, for those of you who are hearing this and thinking, so, who cares? Who needs borders? Maybe it's a good idea for the countries to be integrated. Or, free trade sounds great. Or, I never use my American citizenship anyway. What does it do for me? Consider this. The Bush administration and its friends in the mass media deny that plans exist to create a North American Union based on the model of the European Union. But in September 2006, high-profile representatives from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico gathered at a resort in Banff, Canada, for a secret closed-door meeting of the North American Forum. This was the second such secret meeting after the three amigos agreed to form the Security and Prosperity Partnership. Participants at this secret gathering included former Secretary of State George Shultz, who served as a co-chairman, then Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, former U.S. Trade Representative Carla Hills, a key author of NAFTA, Wall Street Journal columnist Mary Anastasia O'Grady, and several former cabinet officers, government officials, and media heavyweights from the three countries. Topics discussed were energy, security, border infrastructure, and North American integration. In the official conference record of the speeches, the phrase evolution by stealth was used to describe the idea of bringing more people on board with the plan.
Mel Hurtig, a Canadian who attended the session and didn't like what he heard, went public with details about it. Interviewed on a Canadian television program in September 2006, he said, "We're talking about such an important thing. We're talking about the integration of Canada and Mexico into the United States. For them to hold this meeting in secret and to make every effort to avoid anybody learning about it, right away you've got to be hugely concerned." In 2002, Vicente Fox openly admitted, quote, "Eventually our long-range objective is to establish an ensemble of connections and institutions similar to those created by the European Union."
Dick, there is yet another ominous aspect to the North American Union that we mentioned earlier, and that is the plan to replace the Mexican peso and the American and Canadian dollar with the Amero, the North American counterpart of the euro. A little background information is in order here. Experts are now predicting that the collapse of the U.S. dollar is imminent. In 1913, international bankers created the Federal Reserve through tremendous deception, trickery, and secrecy. Since then, this central bank has transferred $20 trillion from the pockets of hard-working Americans